So the first speaker up on second screen is Joan FitzGerald. She's the VP of TV and cross-platform services at comScore, and we're going to try to actually frame the rest of the sequence and this session by having Joan give us a broader view with regards to simultaneous multi-screen experience. So Joan?
Hey.
How are you?
Okay, well, thank you very much for giving me a few minutes of your time today. I work at comScore, and we're one of the companies who is the leader in measuring the digital world. We measure consumers as they use the mobile platforms. We measure consumers as they use digital platforms such as PCs. And we also incorporate television viewing information into our roster of consumer behavior. And what I'm going to do today, as Arthur said, is trying to set the stage for the presentations that are coming up in a few minutes and really kind of give you the highlights of consumer behavior today as it relates to what I'm calling connected consumers. And these are consumers who don't only enjoy content on TV, but they enjoy the content on the PC and on the mobile platforms, and they're really using the PC and the mobile platforms as an extension of their entertainment experience. So let me get to the slides here. So we're going to start with what's enabling the. Could you go back, please? We're going to talk about what's enabling the connected consumer, whether it's the PC, mobile, tablet, or television. And you know, the first driver of connected consumer behavior is really, we have to start with online video, because online video consumption just experiences growth year after year after year. From this slide, you can see that last year about 74 million Americans used online video in any day, and now that is over 100 million. That's about a 40% increase. Online video is a driver of connected consumer behavior in a big way. One of the things you should know about connected online video consumption as well is that online video consumers also tend to consume more of the same content on TV. So we did a major research study for 10 major broadcast and cable networks, and what we found was it was those online video consumers who were really the drivers of usage of content all across the board, whether it was mobile, whether it was TV, or whether it was PC usage of their content. You know, they were consistently using more, they were consistently engaging more, and that's where we hear about that these additional platforms don't cannibalize the core television audience, because really they're using online video, I'll show you a little more later, in new day parts, you know, and in new time periods during the day. I'm going to skip past that slide because it's such an eye chart and go to what's happening in the marketplace. So as the online video consumption increases, so does advertising. Right, what this is showing is the percent of online video content that is advertising, and it's a fairly modest 14%. But what you find is that the volume of online video advertising has increased 20% over the last year.
Is that impressions, Joan?
That is, yes, I believe it's impressions.
Okay, that's great.
Moving from online video to another driver of connected consumer behavior, and no surprise this is going to be social media. You know, social media has just experienced a rapid expansion. This slide here shows June 2008 through June 2011 and a little bit beyond, and really shows the dominance of Facebook and other social media networks in the digital marketplace, where today Americans are averaging 7 hours per month on Facebook. It's really kind of an enormous jump in usage. And and advertisers are following the consumers, where 1 in every 4 display ads right now is spent on Facebook. And as you can see, there are some major content providers out there, but social media is really gobbling up a lot of that advertising pie on the internet. And large brand advertisers are just simply growing their digital investment overall. This shows the number of advertisers that spend, that buy at least 1 billion display ad impressions per quarter. And what you can see is that really that number has had enormous growth from last year to this year. If you look at Q4 2010, which of course includes the holiday season, and then you look at Q4 2011, you can see that it's a many more advertisers are making a significant investment in the internet than ever before. Well, we've gone from online video, we've talked a little bit about social media, and now we're going to move on to the mobile devices. And smartphones and tablets are truly driving a lot of the connected consumer behavior. 93% of smartphone users in the US have used connected media, and that's up 60% compared to last year. So now smartphones and mobile devices are really taking hold as a way for consumers to connect with the internet and communicate in ways that they never were able to before. And you can see that usage just continues to go up. The rise of the mobile connection, this is a really interesting way to look at the increase in mobile traffic. What this is it's a device traffic, and what you can see is that 92% is still coming from your traditional computer, but 8% is coming from mobile devices, and that number we expect to continue to increase. And that's broken up by into mobile and tablet and some other kinds of devices. But what this is showing is that, you know, basically your internet traffic, more and more is coming from those mobile devices. And connected consumers are building these platforms into their TV experience. When we did this study for the major cable and broadcast networks, one of the items we were investigating is the extent to which consumers are using the internet and using their devices simultaneously with television. And what this represents is, the way we measured it in the study is what we called concurrent usage. Did they use TV content, and did they use internet content at the within the same half hour? And what we mean by that is the content had to be related to one another. So we were looking at primetime programming on NBC with NBC Universal websites. We were looking at ESPN on TV with ESPN websites. And what we found overall was that consumers were incorporating internet into their viewing experience. About 61% of consumers who were using TV at some time used internet at the same time, and 30% of them used Facebook at the same time. So these are pretty big numbers. That means we want to look at that in more detail, but this is a really big starting point in terms of consumers using television and their mobile devices at the same time. And then remember, a little earlier I talked about day parts. So we all know what a television day part looks like, where you have prime time, 8 to 11 p.m., which is the peak of television viewing. And what you see is that the different devices are beginning to create new day parts to experience entertainment programming. And these lines show tablets, mobile, and computer. The computer is that orange line. And what you might notice is that a lot of computer usage, internet access via computers, is happening while we're at the workplace. When you look at tablets, what you find is that it's a little more evenly distributed between the morning, afternoon, and evening. And when you look at mobile devices, though, mobile devices are the peak use is in the evening. So what we're finding here, when we talk as an industry about whether the internet and mobile is cannibalizing TV viewing, what we find is that these devices are really creating new day parts for consumers to consume the programming that they want. And from an advertiser's point of view, we took a look at, looking at the reasons that you would buy a television schedule and the reasons that you buy a digital schedule. And one of the things that we started to investigate were different types of consumers, whether they were television-only consumers, digital-only consumers, or multi-screen consumers. That means they consume the content on the television and on the PC, television and mobile, or even mobile and PC devices. And what we saw was that consumers are getting a little bit, connected consumers are getting less of their frequency of ad exposure on television, and that the bulk of it, the remainder of it, is really being made up by their exposure frequency on the digital platform. So that overall, with the campaigns measured in our study, we saw that frequency levels, frequency of exposure, was about the same for multi-screen consumers as they were for the television audience. But where that exposure frequency comes from is very different. It's coming about half from TV and half from digital for these new emerging consumer groups called the connected consumer or the multi-screen consumer. So we've gone through a couple of drivers of connected consumer behavior, and one is online video. You know, major content providers, digital-only content providers are making content available on the internet like they never have before. Another driver is social media. Social media gives consumers new things to do with their television experience and new ways to share their entertainment experience with their friends. And the third is, of course, the mobile platform. You know, we started with smartphones, we're bridging into tablets, and as these devices become adopted by more and more consumers, it's no surprise that the multi-screen consumer and the digital-only consumers are emerging as consumer segments that advertisers now have to pay attention to separate from their overall media buy. And as you can see from this graphic, you know, our media companies are taking their mandate to extend their content across platforms more seriously than ever before. Okay, thank you very much. There you go. Did I?
You're a pro. I mean, especially from the timing perspective. But Joan, two quick things,
sure.
And then let's get to the next presenter. I wanted to just go, don't go back to the screen, but when you talked about the complementary usage, right? When folks are sitting there in their living room, they're on tablet or on the second device. My takeaway from what you were saying is that this wasn't just doing email while watching television.
No.
This is actually a complementary experience on the internet.
Right. That's right.
Right. That's whether it's synced or not.
Yeah.
Is somehow related to what they're watching.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, what we found was that certain types of content, as you might imagine, lend themselves to simultaneous usage. Sports, news, and also some young entertainment programming in the music category.
Yep.
That is a big driver of simultaneous television internet use.
And my second, the whole thing was great, but my second big takeaway was the issue about the creation of new day parts.
Yeah,
so one quick question there, are you seeing anyone in the ad ecosystem, whether it's on the buy or the sell side, starting to take advantage of these new day parts, and are they being priced at this point?
Oh, that's a very, very good question. You know, when advertisers go to the internet or the mobile devices, they're really looking for to customize their content and to do a better job of targeting than maybe they can achieve on television. You know, in television, although the industry's been working on addressable advertising, still, you know, when you send a spot out, it pretty much goes to everybody.
Right.
And on the digital platforms, you have the ability to fine tune where your ads are going, like you really can't do on TV. But to the extent that they are looking at day parting, my experience is they're not quite there yet in terms of buying digital platforms on a day part basis. But with information that comes out like this, you know, you can see that might emerge in the future.
Yeah, I like it. Anything that increases inventory is going to be interesting.
Yeah, that's
anyway,
right.
Let's give Joan a hand. This is a great way to, I think, frame, like we said, the sequence that's happening next. And thank you very much.
Okay. Do you want me to go to the